flowers that we have just presented to you are featured on this piece. This is a piece of walnut hollow wood, and we have base coated in oils. They have dried thoroughly. In Russia, they have drying ovens, and the trays are put in the ovens and they dry overnight. Then a thin layer of linseed oil is applied with a cotton rag. Now we're picking up alizarin crimson in the squirrel brush, and remember, base coat, dry, then add the shadows. And the shadows are being placed at the very tips of the leaf. But also, while the alizarin crimson is in the brush, the shadows are being added to the various flowers. You'll notice one rose is base coated in pink, and you'll notice that the tulip is base coated in a pink and a blue, and that there's a large side view of a rose that has been base coated in a light purple. And it's important to get these shadows blocked in the right places. Anytime something goes underneath something, of course, you will have a shadow. And things that are the back are darker, and things that come to the front are lighter. In the style of Jostova painting, light is in the center, and then it fades to dark on the edges of the design. Now, Prussian blue shadows are being applied on the blue section of the tulip and on the purple section of the rose. Then a little bit smaller squirrel hair brush is picked up. The consistency of the paint is important, and you must have plenty of paint through the hairs of the brush, but not quantity-wise. Really, quantity-wise, very little paint is used. Oh, watch this magnificent pink rose take shape. I really get excited every time this happens. The color that we're using is a tiny touch of cadmium red light mixed with white. And just comma strokes are being used. Note the shadows. More of this wonderful light pink color picked up in the brush. And of course, this could be any shade of pink you desire. And now the back petals have begun to be stroked into the flower. Come across the front with two almost sloppy comma strokes, and then begin more detailed strokes, building up to the edges. See the edge of this brush, how important this is on the very edge of the brush. We work to the outside edge of the brush. Sort of like ice skating when you're on an inside edge or a light side edge. Look at the beautiful depth in the center of that flower. It is magic, but we're teaching you how. Yes, you have to practice. Yes, the rose is the most difficult flower, but how beautiful. Now, over the dirty green shadow of alizarin crimson and sap green, a color called yellow ochre is being used. We have mixed our yellow ochre by using cadmium yellow light and a little bit of cad red light and a little bit of sap green. And then you see the wet color come through from underneath. Now, you're probably wondering how this can be achieved with acrylics. Well, you have to be quick, I promise you that. But there's also ways that are really great that I teach you in the book. We put a painting and blending medium down and then color down and then quickly work into that in exactly the same way that you are seeing here. I think it's great, though, if you learn to do this first in oil so that you know what you're doing. Then you can pick up your speed with the acrylics and really go for it. Watch the leaf that's being created. The shadows are on the outside edge, and then stroke on one side, highlight with a yellow-green down the center, and then stroke on the other side. And they self-shade as you pull in to the paint. They highlight just beautifully. Stroke on one side, stroke the center, stroke lightly on the other side. An extremely light touch is, of course, used. Now we'll begin highlighting with a little bit of yellow. And the strokes get smaller as you build toward the top. Press lift, press lift, press lift, press lift, tiny, 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 as you build towards the top. Press lift, press lift. This is yellow being used, and it goes on as a wonderful yellow-green. We have wonderful seminars teaching people how to paint in the Russian folk art as well as in American folk art, and the Priscilla Hauser seminars I've taught for, oh golly, so many years. And we have so much fun doing them. My little studio in the panhandle of Florida is gorgeous, and I'd love to have you all come and join me. Right for highlighting. And we're using white, and we're highlighting on the petals of the pink rose. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely easy. Again, you have to practice. Look at the amount of paint in the brush. Look at the lightness, the airiness of the strokes. Absolutely beautiful. Study, practice. Practice a flower 25, 30 times. It'll work. I promise you, it will really, really work. Now, beginning to highlight the yellow flower, we've put just a little bit of the yellow ochre color into the white, just to dirty the white a tiny bit. The palette that we're using is a piece of glass, and it takes very little room on a work table. We're using linseed oil to thin with, and no turpentine whatsoever until the final cleanup of the brush. Notice the comma strokes that are being placed over the front of this rose form, and then a second row of strokes which come into the picture here, and then the inside strokes. Absolutely beautiful. Pick up a little cad red light and white now, and remember the tulip? Here we go with a little bit different color combination. We were in blues and purples, and now we're using the cad red light and white. S strokes first, then almost a leaf shape in the center, and now a little Prussian blue plus white. Look at the shadows. Lift that brush, lift, lift. Don't go too far down into the shadow. The base coat, the shadow, the primary color, the highlight, and the outlining. Highlighting with just a little bit of white, to which the tiniest little bit of red has been added. And a little bit of light blue, Prussian blue plus white, to highlight the back of the petals. It's perfectly fine in working on the black or dark green backgrounds too, to let your shadow color come out over the edge of the design. When you're working on white, you can't do this. I want you to watch the flower that's being created now. This is the side view of a rose, and just comma strokes are being used to pull into that alizarin crimson shadow. Please notice that these strokes you pull toward yourself. This starts out very much like a misshapen daisy, and it's so easy. Watch as we blend, and then picking up a little bit lighter paint, little white. Now in the paint, we will create highlights over the flower. Now watch this. Little comma strokes. Three egg shapes. Three egg shapes. See the little eggs? 1, 2, 3. One on top and 2 little eggs behind. And then little comma strokes, cutting in. Cut those little commas in. Don't wipe the brush. Don't pick up more paint so they get darker and darker as you go. Well, a good magician never tells his tricks, but we've shown you the way to learn